Okay. So the way I would look at Vedant, there are two ways, two broad ways to approach Vedant. And you'll find all the texts, they go through one of these two broad ways. And there are multiple categories within those broad ways. But the two broad ways are either you can approach Vedant through yourself. Who am I? And a lot of Upanishads do that. For example, Kane Upanishad. It, it's a beautiful Upanishad which says, who is this person inside who is seeing through the eyes? Who is seeing, hearing through the ears? Obviously, the eyes are not seeing, eyes are just organs. And ears are not hearing, they're also just organs. So, what is hearing? And then it's his mind. Then you realize, no, even the mind is known. So, what is it really that is utilizing the mind and the organs that we have to understand and appreciate what's going on? Mind is a place where all the signals get accumulated. But mind itself is not what is hearing. So that's one way to think about it. Who am I? And different Upanishads will have slightly different slants on it, but that's the big category. So that's the starting point for Vedanta, to understand yourself. The other starting point for Vedanta is, what is this world? How is this world created? And a typical question that you will see many other Upanishads ask is, what is it that is fundamental, the tattva, the most fundamental thing in this world, by knowing which everything is known? That's a key question. By knowing what is everything else known? In other words, like for example, you can say in science, by knowing an electron and proton, you know everything is composed of them. So yes, there are emergent properties from there, but that is the basis, just as an example. So what is it that by knowing something, everything is known? Everything which is living and everything which is non-living is known. Or another way to ask the question is, what is the cause of this world? What's the ultimate cause? Right? Jagat Karana. It's called Jagat Karan. Jagat ka Karan kya hai? So there are multiple ways of asking that question too. So think about it as Tat Tvam Asi. Tat is all about the world, starting from the world. Tvam is starting from you. In either case, you have to go through both. Whether you start from one or the other, we have to understand what I am and we have to understand what the world is to get a complete understanding of Vedanta, or to get a complete understanding of this creation, or whatever, the complete understanding of the philosophy. So you do that, and then you realize the big insight of Vedanta is that what you are in essence and the essence of the world, it's one and the same. That's the major insight of Vedanta. And this is the only philosophy that I know of, definitely only Indian philosophy and any philosophy that I know of, which says this. The only other that I can think of is Shunyavad, which is a Buddhism philosophy, a sect of Buddhism, which also says something very similar. Because it says that in the end there is a zero. So everything is a zero. So, my zero, world zero, it's the same zero. It's same. That's another way of saying it. Vedanta doesn't say it's zero, it says it's Brahman, it's something. Although they're very close. So that is how you can think about Vedanta. So it tries to explain this world, it tries to explain who you are, and it's a most holistic explanation of all of this. That is Vedanta. And what is this thing? This thing which we are saying is the fundamental tattva of, or the fundamental reality of the world and the fundamental reality of me. What is this thing? Just for explanation and just to kind of start explaining this to us, they've given it a name and they've called it Brahman. Now, obviously, the moment you give something a name, you think about it as a thing. So then you will start thinking, oh, there's a Brahman out there. Oh, I have to understand Brahman. And that's a problem. Because this thing, after they introduce it as Brahman, then they tell you that this thing is not actually a thing. It's not an object. It's not something that you can know. It's not something that you can understand like you understand an atom. Because it's not away from you. For you to understand something, it has to be away from you. You, there is that thing, and then you understand that thing. That's how the knowledge and understanding works. That's what we mean by understanding. But if this thing is you itself, the fundamental of you, the one who understands, how can the one you understand that thing? It's not a thing anymore. It's so, if you say the subject is the one who understands English language, object is the thing to be understood, the subject understands the object. But how do we understand the subject? It isn't something that is away from you to understand. So that's the problem with naming it Brahman. But we have to start somewhere. So we say Brahman. Then we say, we try to explain this the best we can. Because it's impossible to explain, it's not a thing. So we try to say, okay, let's take a person, like as much as possible, let's try to explain it. And at some stage, the person has to make an intuitive leap to really understand what is being said. It's like, take the horse to water. Tell the horse, take out your tongue, drink it, blah, blah, whatever. But at the end of the day, the horse has to drink the water. There's nothing anybody else can do. You can't drink the water for the horse. So it's the same thing that you have to do. Ultimately, you have to have that flash or that insight, that understanding. It has to dawn on you that, oh, okay, I'm looking for all this. It's not there, it's just me. So they try to explain first so that they can take you to the edge of understanding. And what's the edge of understanding, they say, about Brahman? They say, okay, it's not a thing. It's non-dual. Non-dual means it is everywhere and it is nowhere. Now, this is very perplexing. How can something be everywhere and nowhere? So you got to, it's only when you start understanding will this start making sense to you, that it's everywhere and it's nowhere. So it's giving you a conundrum so that you can begin to understand it. Then it says it is not in time. It's nitya. Nitya doesn't mean forever. Forever means it's in time. So something, you can imagine something is in time, it will last forever. Like, that steel pillar in Delhi, which has not rusted yet. It's been lasting for 4,000 years. So you can imagine it'll last another 40,000, 100,000. It'll never go away. It'll keep lasting. So you can say that's forever. But that's not the forever we are talking about. It's not something which lasts long in time. It is not in time itself. It's not in space. So they will give you all these clues so that you can get your head oriented towards understanding this thing called Brahman, which is not a thing, which is what? It's you. It's what you are. It's what the reality of the world is. So that's the best anybody can do. They can have lots of examples, lots of drishtant, as they say, lots of illustrations, so that they can keep prodding you. This is the way to think. But ultimately, it has to dawn upon you that I am this. I don't have to search for it. The moment I start searching for it, I'm searching for something, I'm moving away from me. You begin to realize, in order for me to even for my mind to get an appreciation of what its own reality is, because the mind is also nothing but part of the Jagat, part of the world. So because this Tattva, this Brahman, is the reality of everything, it is also the reality of the mind. So for mind to understand, the mind that understands, what is my own reality? It realizes, I can't look at it the way I look at everything else. I can't try to understand it the way I try to understand everything else. Then it relaxes. It just becomes still. And then all these things, they start making sense to you. That yes, you know, I am forever. My body is not forever, but I am forever. And then you start deepening this understanding of what this means. Because you will always have some thing associated with this me. It will be a feeling or something. And slowly you start questioning, thinking about it more and more, and you realize it is nothing. It's like when you go to sleep. So, I mean, I'm explaining the process to you, but you have to tread this path yourself so that you can appreciate yourself and appreciate the peace that comes to your mind when it knows its own reality. So, end result of all this is you're working on the mind so that the mind knows its own reality, so that the mind is at peace. That's the end goal. What you are is always there. You can't change it. Whether your mind knows your reality or not, that reality is there already. All you're doing is for your mind to appreciate that reality so that the mind can be at peace. That is the actual purpose of understanding Vedanta. Okay. So how was that for for an introduction? Is it too esoteric, or I mean, for you guys, I think it must be pretty okay, right? Because you know all this already.
Mhm.
So what comments? I mean, I can keep going, but I don't want to just keep going on. I want to hear from you guys.
नहीं, a good recap and good outlining the whole of Vedanta aspect. And most of the things we know, वो तो है कि we just have to keep working on it. बाकी theory
Yeah,
part, so I think
yeah,
we are quite clear about it.
yeah.
But yeah,
It's this process of, see, when you say the theory part is clear, na, which is what happens. It means
hmm,
that your knowledge of Brahman is
hmm,
as if Brahman is an object,
object.
right? As if it's something out there that you have to learn and know. So what do you say?
Hmm,
Okay, what are the properties of Brahman? Advityam, non-dual, not in
hmm.
time, blah, blah, ever, forever, blah blah, whatever. So you are understanding it like that, and that's the only way to start understanding it,
Start. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
You will understand it as a separate thing. But realization is beyond this sort of cognitive understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just knowledge and conviction that you don't have to understand. It's just the mind suddenly has this
I
conviction.
think realization is the practical aspect of it. Na?
But it's not practical in the sense that you have to do something.
No, you don't have to do something, but you have to tell your mind to be at that level to feel all those things.
Your mind has to intuitively grasp that this Brahman that I'm trying to learn is nothing but my own reality. It
Yeah.
has to have an intuitive and immediate grasp of that. That is realization. So all these things that you're learning, everything, this is just you're preparing your mind in a way.
Preparing, yeah. Yeah,
And at the
preparing.
end of the day, the mind just needs to know this is me. And then it doesn't have to describe it anymore. But it
Mm.
falls into quietude. It becomes quiet
Mm.
because it knows that my own reality is non dual. My own reality is not changing. There's a lot of things going on, a lot is happening. I am going excited and getting happy and getting unhappy. All that is going on. I'm seeing a lot of this creation, lots of activity going on. But that's name and form. That's just form. The substance behind all of this is me, and I am not going anywhere. I'm just here. Because there is nowhere that I'm not already, and there's no time that I'm not already. So once that sort of understanding becomes natural to the mind, when it doesn't have to think about all this, but it just knows, that is the goal, that is realization. Okay, that's all. There's nothing more to it. It's not that we have to do yoga and we have to understand, we have to hold our breath for a long time and control our thoughts, and none of those things. Those are all preparatory exercises, so that those exercises are there so that you can cognitively understand. Even cognitive understanding requires a lot of um, attention and a lot of capability.
मम्मी को ब्रेकफास्ट दे दिया मैंने
हाँ.
और मैं I'm going to start my training.
Okay, we'll be done in half an hour. We have coordinate with Kavita for mummy's care right now. She's got, they gave her something called a wound vac post surgery. Sanjay, I don't know whether you know about it. It's a new way
Mhm.
of dealing with a wound. So they leave the wound open,
Mhm.
and then they put dressing on it, and there's a little
Mhm.
tube which sucks out the air. So there's constant negative pressure on the wound.
Mhm.
It's connected to a little pump which she carries around with her, and that
Okay.
closes the wound, and it promotes the development of blood vessels and all that.
Okay. No,
So
surgical things I'm not very
yeah, yeah,
aware.
no, it's
Mm.
very new
Mm.
also in any case.
New, yeah, maybe.
But it's complicated, to have at that age to have hip replacement and all that is complicated. There's too many
Mm.
things involved.
Mm.
Anyway, so yeah, so that's what I was saying. That's where we are all headed to. You know, all this shravanam that you do is all trying to cognitively understand, get as close as possible to this intuitive realization. That's shravanam. You do mananam, which is all this activity. When you ask me questions, I ask you questions. You have doubts and you try to clarify those doubts. It's to clarify your shravanam, to make sure that yes, what I'm hearing is actually right. Not just because Ved says it is right, not because Vedanta says, but actually it makes sense because there are all these conflicting ideas. So you resolve them. And Nidhi Dhyasana is just then saying, okay, I'm just going to observe myself. Because if I know that this is true, that I'm not going anywhere, that I am at peace, then why in my day to day actions am I not behaving as if I'm in peace? What is that? And you realize those are habits, old habits. They don't have legs under them anymore. They are just there because of habit. So observing them and trying to change those habits, and they're easier to change now because there's no foundation beneath them. The moment you think about what you're doing, you realize what I'm doing is just out of habit. It's not actually helping me. So changing that and reorienting your mind to be in consonance, to be in coordination with your knowledge, getting your mind consistent with your knowledge, getting the manas, consistent with your buddhi, getting the heart and the brain lined up in one direction. That's nididhyasana. Because the mind has a mind of its own. As they say, a doctor who knows that cigarette smoking is bad will still smoke cigarettes. But a person who knows that cigarette smoking is bad, it's easier for that person to give up smoking. Once the person, so this process, imagine you have to give up smoking. First, you're ignorant. You have no idea that smoking is bad. You're just smoking away, and you think I'll get more pleasure if I have a better cigarette, and I'll have more pleasure if I have a flavorful cigarette. So you're trying all kinds of cigarettes. Then someone comes and tells you cigarette smoking is bad. First, you don't believe it. Then you have all these questions. Why is it bad? If it's bad, those people are doing. There are people who are living for 100 years and they've been smoking. It's not bad. All these questions are resolved by mananam. Then you begin to understand, yes, it is bad. You see how it affects your lungs, what is going on. You still can't give up because you're habituated to smoking. But now you do nididhyasana, which is make an effort. Next time you feel like smoking, take a step back and allow your knowledge to influence you. Slowly, slowly, your knowledge will begin to influence you. And it's easier because there is nothing, you know that now my smoking is just an instinct, it's just a habit. There's nothing really behind it. I don't really need to smoke for my happiness. Then you give up smoking. That's it. Those are the three processes of Vedantic learning: cognitive understanding, removal of doubts, intuitive understanding. Mukta, I was going to ask you, and then Atul, any questions? Because you guys are not talking, so I'm going to prod you and force you to talk.
No, I'm fine. I'm getting what you're saying.
You're a Gyani? You're fine?
No, I'm not a Gyani.
You're not a Gyani.
No.
Okay.
Just, actually, it's tough. It's not that easy.
What's
To
tough?
assimilate it takes, I mean, a lot of thinking.
Actually, Mukta, I think you are a Jnani. If you really get through it, you are a Jnani. You just don't know that you are.
Yes, exactly. That's true. Yes, we are all Gyanis.
All
That's very
we are all
kind of you.
Jnanis. No. We are all. If you truly understand what Dheeraj is saying, it is. There's no change. Nothing. There's nothing happening now. There's nothing happened yesterday. Nothing will happen tomorrow. It is what it is. So therefore, we are all Jnanis. We just don't know it.
Yeah, that's what he's trying to tell us, that we have to know it.
Yes, I
The,
think
what
the
we are
way to
doing
think
is
about
the
it is
process of knowing.
so you know it cognitively. You may not yet completely be convinced about it. Because and you can find out about in your own life whether you're completely convinced or not, how much doubt you have, and you can also see the progress. You can also see that. So the beauty about Vedanta is, number one, you can see the progress. Number two, you can see the progress in your own peacefulness, in your own happiness. You can see the progress as you go along, and you can see how things that you used to look at them one way, now you're looking at them differently. And they are not screwing up your happiness anymore. You feel more happy more often. That's the progress. And that is the real motivation for continuing with Vedanta. When they say, someone who starts on this path never goes back.
Never goes back.
Because of this. Why would you go back if it's working for you? And it works for everybody at different levels, at different pace, different ways, but it works because it is the truth. That's why it works. Again, of course, I'm saying this, but you won't take my word for it, but you can find it out for yourself. So Atul, that's your point that you raised about we are all Gyanis. Now this last point here, what is unique and different about Vedanta's understanding, not of creation, but what is unique and different about Vedanta? So I told you earlier that there is this Paramarthika track and the Vivaharika track. There's a two-track approach to Vedanta. And let me explain to you why that's important to understand. So you'll see, on the one hand, Vedanta says we are all Gyanis already. What we really are Brahman. The Jiva jo hai, this Jiva is Mithya. Vedanta also says God is Mithya. Ishwar is also Mithya. Everything is Mithya. What you really are is Brahman. Then that's one thing. Then it goes ahead and says, Gita mein padhoge, you are a result of your karmas. So you do this karma, you'll get this result. You do that karma, you'll get that result. If you learn about Brahman do Brahman Upasana, you'll go to Swarg. You'll come back as a human being. If you lead a dirty, bad life, you'll come back as a tree or a plant or some insect. Like it says all these things. It describes how you should live in this world as if you're real. Karma Yoga kya hai? Karma Yoga says, do everything and give it to Ishwar. Ishwar Arpan Buddhi. Or Ishwar Prasad Buddhi. That look at everything as Ishwar's Prasad. Right? So it says develop a relationship with Ishwar. It's a way to help you get Vairagya. It's a way to help you lose this huge sense of ownership, which feeds the ego. So this is one mechanism or one technique to help you lose that, right? There could be many. You can choose your own technique, whatever technique you want. The objective is you want to loosen the grip of your ego on yourself, because the ego is delusional. It doesn't let you be objective. So Bhagwan Krishna has given us Karam Yoga for doing it. And, since it's Bhagwan Krishna and we got no problem, one technique is as good as the other, we'll just go with that. But for that, it's saying you have to do this activity. Prayatna. It's all about effort. It's all about action. It's all about relationship between you and God. Now, what is all this if you are already Brahman? How can Vedanta say on the one hand, you are already Brahman, you are not an actor, you don't do any actions, you're not an experiencer, you don't experience anything, and on the other hand, it's saying all this. So, for a person who listens to this for the first time, it can be and is a thinker who actually tries to understand, not just listen and एक कान से सुना दूसरे कान से निकाल दिया. For that person, Vedanta is extremely confusing. And this is the only philosophy which has this confusion. Because every other philosophy has only got the Vivaharika track. There is no Paramarthika track. So look at Christians. What do they say? Do good deeds, you will go to heaven. Do bad deeds, you will go to hell. It's a Vivaharika track. The Vivaharika track is saying, I am as Dheeraj or as Mukta or you are an entity. That entity is real. The moment you say that, and that entity should do good things, that entity will have good results if it does good things. The moment you say that, you're on the Vivaharika track. Because you've said, I am real. If you are real, a natural corollary of it is that the world is also real. You can't be real and the world is not real. Another corollary would be, some people would say there's a God. Some would say there is no God. I'm atheist. I am there, but there is no God. But these are all Vivaharika tracks. And the moment you're on the Vivaharika track, there are differences of opinion. Vedanta will say, you go to, this is how it happens. Dvait will say, no, there's an Ishwar which is separate from you. Vishishta Dvait will say something else. Sankhya will say that there are actually two realities. Sankhya says, one reality is you as consciousness, and another reality, Tattva, is the world, whose reality is called Prakriti. You are called Purusha. The reality of the world is called Prakriti. It says there are two realities. You are subject to speculation because none of these has any proof. Even when Vedanta says that there is a heaven out there that you will get to, there is no proof because it's talking about a future which is after death. Who has seen after death? Only difference is Vedanta says it's not my speculation, it's written in the Vedas. That is why it is true. So it says it's apaurushaya. Vedanta says anything that's written in the Vedas is true. How do I know? Because Veda says it. That's a praman, that's a proof. Everything which is not followed by the Vedas is speculation. That is Vedanta's nice and comfortable stand. Why? Because Vedanta says that the word of the Veda is proof in itself. So that's how it explains its Vivaharika track. Now, Buddha also has a Vivaharika track. He says follow the middle path. Don't do ahimsa, don't do anything bad. All this assumes that there is a you, which is following the middle path, which is not doing hinsa, all that. That's a Vivaharika track. Now, the followers of Buddhism say, it's true. You ask them, why is it true? It's not in the Vedas. They say, no, we don't care about the Vedas. It's true because Gautam Buddha said it. Gautam Buddha's word is gospel. Christians say their own philosophy. Why is it true? Because Jesus Christ said it. You tell them it's not in the Vedas. They say, what is Vedas? Right? They have nothing for Vedas. And they look, it's in the Bible. So, the moment you're talking about Vivaharika track, where you're saying there's a you, there's a world, there is space, there is time, blah, 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 there can be millions of views. If you go to the scientists today, they will say all this is crap. Because neither Vedanta, Veda is true, nor Bible is true, nor Gautam Buddha, nor Jain. None of these are true because these are all words of people. What is true? Data. Data is true. What is data? That I perceive. Any data that I perceive, whether through an experiment, whether through the James Webb telescope, or through my microscope, or through some other means, I perceive data. That I can count on. Then from data, I'll do analysis. and I will come up with my view of the world that I can live by. Because for them, the words of a person are less valid than data. That's just their perception. Now, you can go deeper into it and say, what is data? Because data keeps changing. Depending on your instrument, your data will change. And you can see this over time. The more refined instrument you get, you start getting new data. The same scientists were convinced about classical physics. Then they changed their data. They realized that the speed of light does not vary, even if the observer's speed is varying. With that insight, they used inference and came up with relativity. Now suddenly relativistic physics was the last word. Then they realized that some of the like for example, they realized that if it was really true what we were saying, then an electron which is moving around a central nucleus would lose energy. If it as it loses energy, it will collapse into the nucleus. So the whole world should be collapsing right now. It doesn't collapse. They found this data. They said, oh, then they created a new theory. They said it doesn't collapse because the energy is lost and gained in quanta. So you can't just gradually lose energy. And the quanta establishes a particular state in which electron has to be. This led to the creation of quantum physics. Now all of a sudden everything is different, but quantum physics is the thing that you go by. So all I'm saying is, on the Vivaharika track, the best you can get is speculation. And you will get all these fights. Rajesh Kapoor keeps telling me, I don't believe in Vedanta. What is this Advait Vedanta? So if you think about Vedanta on the Vivaharika track, it's a good starting point. But if you think that's the end all, you're going to get into trouble. Vivaharika track is given in Vedanta just to get your mind going. Just to give you a framework which is different than the framework that you are used to. The Vivaharika track framework tells you that the body is consisting of three entities. Actually three entities. The Sthul Sharir, the Sukshma Sharir, and the causal body. Now there is no evidence of this. But if you start thinking like this, it's a framework which helps with the Vedantic thinking. Vedantic thinking will be very difficult if you didn't have this framework. If your framework was, all there is this body full of molecules. So Vedanta has to build its own framework, which helps you get to the Paramarthika track. That is the purpose of Vedanta's Vivaharika track. The real beauty of Vedanta, the real joy, the real insight is the Paramarthika track. And you have to really, really fully grasp it. And to grasp it, you have to grasp the Vivaharika track. I mean, you have to have this sorting out clear in your head. Right? What is Vedanta really saying? So in Brahma Sutra, which is the theory of Vedanta, there is the fourth sutra. I actually remember the sutra. It's called Tattu Samanvayat. Okay? That sutra basically says that the Samanvaya of Vedanta, that means the central message of Vedanta, the harmonious consensus, harmonized message of Vedanta is Brahman, is the knowledge and the existence of Brahman. You are Brahman. This is the essence of the Paramarthika tract. So Vedanta has to clarify this. People have to understand this. Otherwise, people can get very confused. So that's to Atul's answer. He has jumped to the Paramarthika tracks that we are all the same without totally understanding it yet, if I might say so. But he's got it there. But you really can't get it till you've also understood the Vivaharika track. Any track, anyway, you have to have that kind of framework. Whether you could be following the Vivaharika track of Buddhism. That's fine too, and jump to. But what I'm trying to say is that this is Vedanta, and this is why Vedanta is different. This is why they say that Vedanta is it's the flowering, the ultimate flowering of the Indian philosophy. It's the end of knowledge. It's like the nobody. It's where no man has gone before. It's the final frontier. That's the reason. And with Buddhism, like I told you, Madhyamika also says something similar. but somehow Vedanta has better marketing. Vedanta has all these schools and mutts, and they have people have they're spread out all over, and they're giving nice distribution also. There is a center in America, there's a center everywhere else. So they've done a better job of marketing. Many other small philosophies which actually give the same kind of message, they are very happy in themselves and recluse. They haven't marketed themselves like Vedanta has. Atul, you can use this example in your next book.
Yeah, but I don't agree with it though. I mean,
you,
in
you
other
don't
words, I
think
don't
Vedanta has
think.
marketed itself?
No,
Hmm?
I'll have a tough time explaining it
Explaining
as such.
Vedanta's marketing.
It's marketing, because I think that going back to the other question, I mean, see, the theory is easy to understand, and actually the process of explaining the theory, I think that part I think has been well done, in the sense that you think of this as subject and object. Once you understand that as an object, then you sort of say, actually, you as a subject also belong to that object. So in other words, you jump into that same well that you have now understood. So now you become part of the well. So that part is good. But I think the struggle I've always had, I've watched it in different versions or with different words, is that all the feelings that we experience, all the issues, good or bad, joyful or painful, all of those that we experience are in the business, we say, in the real world, in what you would say in the Vivaharika world. So I've always struggled that if I'm trying to solve a pain point in Vivaharika world, I want an answer also in Vivaharika world. It cannot be that, well, the real world is Paramarthika, and therefore you should elevate yourself and
But that
not
nobody's
think of
saying
this
that,
as a
Atul.
problem.
Nobody is saying that. You have a problem in the Vivaharika world that you want to solve. You believe that it can be solved using a Vivaharika tool. Go for
Yeah.
it. Nobody is stopping you from trying to solve your problem. If you have a problem that you find you've got plumbing issues in your house, you can't elevate yourself out of it and say, that's not really me, and let your house flood up with water. You
No,
have to
but even
solve it.
no, that's a good point. That part is obvious.
Nobody's ever saying that. This has got nothing to do with action. This has nothing to do with you're doing what needs to be done based on your experience and your knowledge and everything else. You do all that. No stopping.
No,
Nobody's
but
trying to stop.
but if plumbing is a classic example. Okay, that's the obvious, and your point is well taken. But let's say if I'm unhappy, or if I'm fearful of something, if I'm fearful of death, okay. So the way I understand that is that you're saying that actually that is not really, I mean, that's only a Vivarika problem.
No, I'm not
because
saying that. You understood it totally wrong. I'm saying if your problem is fear of death, what do you think is the answer to fear of death?
well, I don't have an answer, but
Right.
what I'm
But
rejecting,
in your mind, you believe that the answer is not to run away from the problem by saying it doesn't
yeah,
exist. You believe
yeah,
that the answer probably
yeah.
is understanding your own mind and why it is afraid, and perhaps going to a psychologist or a therapist, trying to do some analysis, right?
Or acceptance, or coming to the
Coming to
acceptance of it.
terms. Yeah, absolutely. Go
Yeah.
for it. That is, so what is Karma Yoga? Is the same thing. भगवान कृष्ण को अर्जुन ने पूछा, मैं संन्यास लेना चाहता हूँ, विद्या चाहता हूँ. भगवान कृष्ण told him, no, forget about sannyas and vidya. Do your actions. Do the things that you have to do, because that is what you need to do right now. So, to say that Vedanta is telling you not to follow your own instincts and do something else is totally incorrect. Vedanta is saying that if you are at a position in life where you have done everything else, where you have tried everything else, and you still don't have an answer, then I invite you to think differently. You're not at that position yet. You have lots of things to try. There's a shlok here which I have to bring up because it is one of the most important shloks of Vedanta. It says Parikshaye Lokan Karam Chittan Brahmana Nirvedan Ayat. This is in the Mundaka Upanishad, and it's often quoted, which talks about the readiness of the person. What are the qualifications of a person who needs to go to Vedanta? Not saying good or bad. This is just, it's what it says. It says, Parikshaye Lokan Karam Chittan. Pariksha means examination. Having examined Lokan Karam Chittan, all the experiences of this world of action, having done all of that, and they don't only mean just one world. They say Lokan means the Swarag Lok, the Narak Lok, the Prithvi Lok, multiple lifetimes. Right? Having done that, Brahmana Nirvedan Ayat. A wise man, Brahmana, Nirvedan Ayat. The Brahmana steps away from this world. He starts realizing, I can't find the answer that I'm looking for in this world. But important thing is, having done all that, because in Vedanta, the reason that this world exists, the only way to get, maybe that's enough, the only way to get dispassion, the only way to get vairagya is by immersing yourself completely in this world. That's the only way to make progress. Because
Which,
if you
which, that
don't,
is the aspect I totally love.
because if
I
you
totally,
don't do that,
yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't try it out, you haven't done everything, you are not going to get dispassion. You will always have this doubt at the back of the mind. Hey, maybe I should have done that. So this is a very famous saying of Vedanta. So इसके बाद आगे भी है. So Parikshaye Lokan Karam Chittan Brahmana Nirvedan Ayat. Right? So now the Brahmana, after having tried all this, has got Nirvedan. Nasti Akritan Kriten. Nasti Akrita Kriten. That means Brahmana realizes that the Akrita, that the peace or the moksha that he's looking for, is not available in this world of activity. Nasti means not there. Na asti. Akrita means moksha, another word. Kriten means it's a third, this thing, the third case, by activity. This is not available. Tad vigyanarthan. To get that knowledge, saha gurum eva abhigachet. That Brahman has to go to a guru. Right? And then it says, it describes the properties of how? Samit Panini, right? Shrotriam Brahmanishtam. So Samit Panini means with twigs in hand. So twigs in hand is like you have to go with the right attitude. Twigs meaning when you, in the past, when they used to go to the Gurukul, you used to get firewood for the fire. That was the job that you were doing, to offer some help to the house, or the Guru's house. So, go with twigs in hand. That means you're saying, I will do the work for you. I'm going with a humble attitude, with Shraddha. Shrotriam means you're going to a guru who has himself gone through this teaching. Brahmanishtam, you're going to a guru who is established in this teaching. Right? So this lays out in one shlok the whole sort of journey of Vedanta. But anybody who says Vedanta is saying step away from this world has not even understood Gita, much less Vedanta. Because Krishna Bhagwan is telling Arjun again and again, go back and fight. Get up and fight. Fight. Arjun keeps saying, I want to go to the, it's all knowledge anyway. So why do I have to fight? Ultimately, it's knowledge. So I want to take sannyas and just learn. And Krishna Bhagwan is saying, no, you have to fight. This is not, you'll stay
There's no
in this
pill.
world. Huh?
There's no pill.
There's no pill, exactly. There is no pill. The only pill is to enjoy this beautiful God-given life that you've got. Make the most of it. Just get into
वो
it.
तो चलो वो भी ज्ञान आ गया. वो भी ज्ञान आ गया.
So anyway,
कुछ तो
yeah, so that's the only path forward, There is no shortcut. Okay, it's already almost 9 o'clock, so I'm going to stop. But if you have any last questions or anything else. Yeah, so Atul, to your point, just what you're doing, I love it because I think you're really trying to live your life, to maximize your life to the full. Whatever is you think is right, you're doing. You're not worried about what the world is saying. You're not worried about what's the right way to do it or the right thing to do. You're following your heart. That is very Vedantic. Just early stages of
Actually,
Vedantic. Early
on
stages of
that
Vedanta,
front,
but Vedantic.
on that front, this is almost a humorous story, but it's a true story.
Okay,
So
2 minutes. Yes.
2 minutes. 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, in our national meeting, Chief Outsiders National Meeting, we get together every March in Houston. So one of the things in one session, somebody said, we all need to go through. We went through the room, like at that time there were only 50 of us, to say what is my superpower. Put a tagline for yourself. What is I'm the best digital marketer. I can get cash out of digital media. Whatever this thing is. There was somebody who said I'm the first responder of marketing. So I'm the first responder of marketing. By the time it came to me, it wasn't very tagliney, but my point was call me last when everything else has been tried and you have failed.
Very Vedantic.
Very Vedantic, exactly. But then so एक बंदा मेरा colleague है, he's saying I'm the first responder. I said I'm the last responder. When you've tried everything,
you try everything,
and if it doesn't work, come to me.
So Vedant absolutely is the last responder. And if you think about Vedanta as the first responder, you will have a problem with Vedanta. Because you're thinking Vedanta is giving you a silver bullet.
तो वही करा मतलब.
No.
And this predates our sessions. So this conversation took place 3 or 4 years ago. So that's what I'm saying. This Vedantic approach, so I adopted in my profession.
You should.
Yeah, call me last.
When do you think knowledge becomes the answer? When the answer is wisdom. For a young person, the answer is always action. So you have to first try the action answer. See where you can get with it. How long you can get with it. Then you go to wisdom. Anyway, so I think
from 4 clients, I'm down to 1.
From what?
From 4 clients, I'm down to 1.
Okay. Good for you. Any other last thoughts? Questions?
नहीं, last I think the punchline is कि वो वेदांता तो शुरू ही तब होता है when you have gone through all the actions and you have tried everything and still you are unhappy and unpeaceful and surrounded with so many problems and you are trying to solve, and then only you take this Vedantic path.
Yes.
I think, then only you are ready for it.
Yes. Yeah.
The priming has been done and you have failed to get your real answers. And then you jump onto this path and then keep continuing.
Mukta, any last words?
Well, I think we all have our times and our readiness, and His grace तभी होता है, नहीं तो नहीं होता.
We are in a good place, all of us, wherever we are. We don't have to be anywhere else.
Yes.
We don't have to do anything else. We don't have to be anywhere else. We don't have to, whatever. That sort of mental attitude is the best optimal attitude to understand Vedanta. Chalo, I'm going to say goodbye. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. My best wishes for your mom.
Yeah. Say hi to her.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Chalo.
Bye, guys.
Okay. Okay. Bye.